One day, a young father was shopping in a very crowded and busy supermarket. His 3-year-old son was with him, and the little boy was sitting where children sit in the grocery cart, misbehaving terribly, causing all kinds of distractions and problems. Every time the young father would put something in the cart, the little boy would grab it and throw it out. If the cart went too close to the shelves, the boy would rake stuff off of the shelves onto the floor. At one point, the little boy crawled out of the cart and ran down the aisle, knocking over every display along that he could, with the young father in hot pursuit. People who were in the store at the time could hear the father saying out loud over and over, "Just be patient, Tommy. It won't be much longer, Tommy. It'll be okay, Tommy. Be calm, Tommy. Hang in there." Finally, a distinguished-looking woman came up to the man and she said, "I want to compliment you. I've been watching you, and I want you to know that I admire you for the remarkable patience you have with little Tommy." "Oh, lady," said the young father, "you don't understand. His name is Michael. I'm Tommy." Grocery shopping with children can be challenging and time-consuming. It can be like a foreign experience, which is exactly where Luke 8 takes us. Jesus and his disciples have taken a voyage across the Sea of Galilee. They have landed on the shores of Gerasa, a Gentile territory. Now, as I thought about this part of the story, I remembered part of my faith journey. You know, because of the way that I talk, that I wasn't raised around here. I was born and raised in Texas. I try to be humble about that. Have you ever wondered why I left Texas? Somebody said no, they don't wonder why I left. There were plenty of good reasons for leaving Texas. I joke about leaving Texas because of the humidity. But if we really get down to it, I left because I thought that my faith experience was too small, perhaps stunted. I left to see if my journey of faith had wandered or become too safe and too comfortable. I wanted to know if my faith experience was authentic and translatable. Jesus takes his disciples into a foreign place, outside their element, off road and off the map. Will the good news that Jesus brings work in a foreign environment? Gerasa is nestled in Gentile land. We would realize that because of the presence of the pigs. No self-respecting Jewish person would keep 2,000 pigs because in their tradition, pigs were unclean. Jewish folks don't keep pigs. They don't eat pigs. They don't have anything at all to do with pigs. Therefore, pigs in a story written for Jews is a passage about going beyond the comfortable borders of fine Jewish people. The character Tevye in Fiddler on the Roof would say, "Crazy, no? We're confronted with craziness every day. Sometimes the craziness is at a distance. Craziness in war, craziness in politics and the government. Sometimes there's craziness that happens more intimately. Jesus and the disciples had just come through a storm on the Sea of Galilee. It is nighttime. And having survived that frightening storm, the disciples are at least thrilled to be on solid ground. But as they get out of the boat, they encounter a very different kind of storm and an unsettling and uncomfortable experience. They hear strange sounds coming from a cemetery, shrieks and growls and screams, moans and rattling chains. And then they see a bruised, dirty, bloody, battered man. The chains dangling from his arms and ankles, and he comes at them running and screaming. It still happens today. It's happened in my home. It happens in this community and in this state and in this nation. See if you recognize any of these situations. A fed-up mother says to her teenage daughter, "You're so mean and disrespectful. Every word that comes out of your mouth is hateful. How do they stand you at school when I can't stand you when you're like this at home?" To which the teenage young woman replies, "It would probably surprise you to learn that I'm quite a different person away from this place. Her name is Legion." A comedian doing a routine on confusion shared this. "Remember the medieval method of torture known as quartering, wherein a person's arms and legs were tied to 4 different horses, with each horse commanded to gallop in a different direction?" The comedian says, "There are times when I feel that my life is being pulled in all directions at the same time. And his name is Legion." "What is your name?" Jesus asks. And the answer comes back from the crazy man. "My name is Legion because I don't know who I am. There are so many voices. We are many." A psychiatrist is visiting with a new patient. The psychiatrist asks the patient, "Does everybody in your house get along?" To which the new patient answers, "I live alone." "No, we don't." His name is Legion. They're biblical names. Think about Jacob. He was unlovable. He stole his brother's birthright. He deceived his father. He wrestled all night long just to get a new name. And that story says to the people of the Old Testament, God loved Jacob. How much easier it is to love folks that are not like Jacob. And Jacob got a new name, Israel. But what about Saul in the New Testament? Who knew the law and tried to do every bit of that law faithfully. Caused him to do horrible and crazy things. He was a persecutor of Christians. He had Christians put to death. And he goes through a name change. Saul becomes Paul. How is that so different from today, when people take religion literally? that can have vicious consequences. My point is, we all know Legion. There are many folks that we observe living on the fringes as social, economic, gender, sexual identity outcasts. From Luke this morning, we hear Jesus ask, "What is your name?" They all have a name. It's child of God. It's not our mission to continue and perpetuate ignorance or use our resources to continue to construct barriers and obstacles. We often send the people who live on the fringes to live among the dead or the marginally living. Now let me ask you something. If you've been through a storm all night long and then you ended up in a foreign place, what would you have done being out of your element? Now, for the disciples, their first impulse was probably to run for their lives, to jump back in the boat. But what would we do? Would we run or walk away figuring that people with more experience and more skill than we have already addressed the problem, and their solution was sending the demoniac to live among the tombs by himself was the best solution? Would we put that person on a shelf or in the closet or in storage or in isolation, erecting obstacles and barriers, treating the demoniac as anything but a person of sacred value? Too often, we and our society do exactly that. We kick the can. We don't participate in constructing an excellent solution. But not Jesus. Jesus stood his ground. He faced the madman. Undaunted and unafraid, Jesus stood there and spent time with this wild man. And Jesus healed him. He brought peace to the man's troubled soul. He changed him. He cleansed him. He turned his life around. And you know, don't you, that he can do that for all of us. "What is your name?" Jesus asks. The man replies he doesn't know who he is, that there are so many that he is called Legion. Legion is a Roman word referring to a military force of 3,000 to 6,000 soldiers. Now, if all 6,000 are marching in the same direction, one can think that that's a marvelous display of integration and power and togetherness. But if those 6,000 are not coordinated, they can tear one apart. To suggest my name is Legion is to suggest I am many. I'm split, divided, torn, perhaps schizoid. Some people feel that way, you know. When the demons heard Jesus calling them by name, they were terrified and they begged him not to send them into the abyss. Nobody wants to go to a no place, not even demons. But Jesus commands those demons to leave the man's body. The demons recognize that Jesus has power over them, and they offer no resistance to Jesus, but they are calculated in their negotiations. They bargain with Jesus for the best deal they can get. "Don't send us out of the country," they say. According to ancient legends, a demon without a body must wander the earth, seeking a dwelling place. in desert regions or watery bogs or tombs. So the demons say, "Send us into the swine." And Jesus grants their wish. Apparently the pigs can't stand the craziness, so they stampede off the cliff and are drowned into the sea. Now, in gratitude for his newfound peace of mind, the man healed of the unclean spirits begs Jesus to let him go with him. After all, his own neighbors and family have sent him to live in the cemetery. Jesus says, "Return to your home. Declare how much God has done for you." And that's exactly what the man did. And I'd like to say, and everyone lived happily ever after, except for the pigs. When the word of the healing spread, people gathered. When they saw the wild and crazy guy sitting beside Jesus, fully clothed and of sound mind, they were not happy. They were fearful. And Luke adds, the entire populace of the Gerasene begged Jesus to leave, which he did. How frightening it can be when healing power is displayed. How unsettling it can be when the sick get well. How accustomed we have become to the status quo, even when the status quo is madness. One is left to conclude that the people of Gerasa feared insanity less than they feared sanity. And even to this day, they are not alone. The very people who sent the man to live among the tombs in the first place make the same kind of decision. They ask Jesus to leave and never come back. Crazy, no? We don't know how long or how much energy they spent dealing with the man they sent to live away from them and in the cemetery. They considered him dead to them as a community. And the truth is that they did so not for his well-being, but theirs. And now that Jesus has come and stirred things up and healed him, they didn't know what to make of it, nor what to do about it. Of course, they could have celebrated with the man and thanked Jesus for what he had done for their neighbor and for their community. But then to have done that, they would have had to have become a lot more healthy and loving themselves. They would have had to have been a lot better off in mind and body and spirit than they obviously were. Sick themselves, they couldn't deal with this new healthy one in their midst. And their natural response was to reject again this new foreign element that had come into their lives. It required too much energy for them to change. But apparently they considered the cost of the healing too high because it cost them economically. So what do we think of the cure in this text? Jesus asks, "What is your name?" You shouldn't answer with your common everyday name. We should answer with, "I am a child of God, a sheep of your fold, a lamb of your flock, a child who has been healed by you." We are children of God. That, my brothers and sisters, is the biggest part of the cure. No matter where you are, that is where your authentic journey of faith begins. Thanks be to God. Amen.